Donald Trump is running away with the 2024 presidential election. There is simply no way he loses. Not only does he lead in all 7 of the battleground states, but he's also recently pulled ahead in the national average. He's on track to be the first Republican to win the popular vote in 20 years. The betting markets also give him a huge 30-point advantage. Trump at a whopping 65% chance of winning the election in just 8 days. As someone that actually predicted Joe Biden's 306 to 232 electoral vote victory in 2020, I can tell you that this election is very different from the last. Trump couldn't be in a better position with just a little bit over a week to go until November 5th. In this video, we'll be taking a deep dive into the 7 swing states because ultimately it is going to be Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and Georgia that actually decide who the 47th president is going to be. The results in all the other states are basically predetermined. Kamala Harris has no chance in states like Texas or Florida. Trump, on the other hand, isn't going to win states like Colorado and Illinois. So really, it is going to come down to this group of 7. Together, they make up just 93 electoral votes, but they are going to be the states that will get either Trump or Harris over 270. And so we're going to start off with the first must-win state for Trump, and that, of course, is Georgia. If Trump can't win Georgia, it is going to be highly unlikely that he'll be able to win any of the other swing states. Georgia is going to fall in favor of Trump first. He leads by 2.2% in the polling, which is surprising considering this is actually a state that he lost in the last election. Joe Biden carried the Peach State by just under a quarter of a percentage point. It was the most competitive race of the 2020 cycle, but 4 years prior, Trump actually won Georgia by 5 points. In fact, Joe Biden's victory in 2020 was the first for any Democrat going all the way back to 1992. But today, things are clearly very different. Trump is on track for a strong victory. He's led basically throughout the entirety of the 2024 cycle, except for a short week-long period in September when Harris held a 0.2% lead. Trump also has a huge lead in the betting markets. I mean, just look at where we were 1 month ago and compare that to where we are today. On October 1st, Trump had a 60% chance of winning. He definitely had a slight advantage, but it was still relatively competitive. Today, his odds have shot all the way up to 75%. Trump has a 3 in 4 chance of flipping Georgia back red. And looking at where he is today, Trump is doing just as well as he was before Joe Biden dropped out of the race in mid-July. So Democrats went through all the trouble of replacing their nominee at the top of their ticket, and they're basically right back where they started. Georgia is going to flip in favor of Donald Trump. There's no doubt about it. It is going to be lean Republican on our map. I'm projecting a 2 to 4% margin of victory for the former president. And the other must-win state for Trump is going to be Arizona. These 2 states, fundamentally, Trump cannot lose if he wants to get back into the White House. And I do have Georgia as being the state that'll go to Trump by the largest margin out of all the battlegrounds. And number 2 is going to be Arizona, yet another state that he actually lost 4 years ago. Joe Biden won Arizona by 0.3%. It was also the first time that any Democrat had carried the state since the 90s. And so Arizona in 2024, just like in Georgia, is looking very different. Trump has a 1.5% lead in the polls, and he has been ahead in every single poll released throughout the month of August. He is not going to lose Arizona. Now, on the Senate level, it's very possible that Carrie Lake is going to lose her race against Ruben Gallego, but in the presidential election, Donald Trump is the clear favorite. There is only a 2-day period where Harris was ever ahead here. At every other point throughout the cycle, Trump has been leading. Before we continue, nearly 70% of you guys are not subscribed, so please subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November. And join my Discord server to participate in our 2024 prediction map contest at discord.gg/elections. Coming back to Arizona, we're also going to look at the betting markets here, and I mean, look at this graph. This is just incredible what Trump's been able to do in mid-August. This is during the Democratic convention. This was where Harris peaked. It was basically a tie between Trump and the vice president in Arizona. I mean, before Joe Biden dropped out, he was at around a 3 in 4 chance, basically exactly where he is today. With just 8 days to go until the election, Trump is literally peaking in Arizona. It is highly likely he is going to win the state back, a state he carried by 3.5 points back in 2016. Arizona is not going blue again. Kamala Harris is not going to repeat Biden's success from 4 years ago. I mean, over the last month, Trump has expanded his lead significantly. At the very beginning of October, he was at 64, and you know that going from 64 to 74, that really is a huge difference in terms of his percentage odds of winning. And so Arizona, just like Georgia, is also going to be lean Republican. Trump is going to carry the state also by around 2 to 4 points. And so with the 5 remaining states, Trump could go in a number of ways here. The most likely scenario is that he wins a combination of 2 states at the very minimum, and that'll get him over 270. He could win Pennsylvania and Nevada. I mean, Pennsylvania with any other state would get him over the top. He could also do something like Wisconsin and Michigan, or Wisconsin and North Carolina. So there are a lot of ways for him to win. Really only Georgia and Arizona were the must-wins, as they were clearly the most conservative. Now, with the remaining 5, these states are going to be more competitive, but the next state in line that I have going in favor of the former president is going to be North Carolina. This is the only battleground state that Trump won in both 2016 by 3.7% and 2020 by 1.3%. And the reason why I have North Carolina voting to the left of its southern neighbor is because of Mark Robinson, the Republican candidate for governor in the Tar Heel state. He's really pulling Trump down here. It's probably not going to be enough for Trump to actually lose, but his campaign has been terrible, Mark Robinson's. He's just embroiled in so many scandals, and he is not going to win his election, but Trump likely is. He leads by 0.8% in the polls. This may not look like that much, but you have to remember that in 2016 and 2020, polling said the Democrats were going to finally flip North Carolina, and every single time they were wrong. But in 2024, Trump has led throughout the entirety of the cycle. At every single moment this year, whether it was against Biden or against Harris, Trump has been in the lead. Before I continue, I want to tell you guys about Polymarket, the world's largest prediction market, where you can track election results and instantly see who's leading. These odds react in real time to current events instead of days later like the polls. There's no bias or media spin, just pure data. Market odds reflect the collective analysis, beliefs, and wisdom of thousands of traders reacting to world events. Polymarket has also recently launched a mobile app where you can access their 2024 election forecast on the go. It's what I use every day to stay updated on the presidential race. Download it for free right now using the QR code on screen or the link in the description below. Coming back to North Carolina, we're also going to take a look at the betting markets, and just like in all the other races, we see a similar pattern. Trump peaking right before Joe Biden drops out. His numbers start to go down and dip to an all-time low in mid-September, which is when Harris peaked. But as we entered October, the numbers for Trump just keep climbing higher and higher. Now, Trump's rise in October hasn't been as significant in North Carolina, and that, of course, is because of Mark Robinson. If he wasn't on the ballot, North Carolina would likely be the most conservative of all 7 swing states. But even though we have that governor's race going on where Republicans are performing pretty poorly, Trump is still going to win North Carolina for a 3rd time in a row. It is going to be lean Republican. I'm currently projecting a 2 to 3% margin of victory. And so now Trump just needs any one of the 3 former blue wall states to get over 270. His most likely pathway to the presidency goes through winning 3 of the 4 Sunbelt states and then 1 additional race up in the Midwest. That is why Kamala Harris needs to win all of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania to get to 270. But right now, it seems pretty unlikely that she'll be able to do that, because the next state that is going to fall in favor of the former president is going to be Pennsylvania, a state that he won back in 2016 by 0.7%. This was the first time any Republican had won Pennsylvania in 30 years. And then in 2020, Joe Biden won the state back, winning it by just 1.2. Pennsylvania is incredibly competitive this time around. Trump leads by 0.6% in the polling average, which doesn't seem like a lot, but you do have to remember again that Trump is always underestimated in these polls. In 2016, Clinton was supposed to win by 5. She lost the state entirely. In 2020, Joe Biden was was supposed to win by 3.8, he barely won by 1%. Polling in Pennsylvania has been tight throughout the entirety of the cycle, but as election day nears, Trump's position is only getting better. The betting markets also have Trump in a very good position here. He shot up 10% since the beginning of the month. He was at 50% to Kamala's 51. Now he's at 61 to Harris's 40. Pennsylvania is going to be competitive. There hasn't been that dramatic of a shift like we saw in Arizona or Nevada. Pennsylvania is still fundamentally a liberal state, but there's no doubt that Trump is the favorite. He is probably going to win Pennsylvania. It's probably going to be this state that finally gets him over the 270 threshold. Pennsylvania is just barely going to be lean Republican. I have Trump winning the race by anywhere from 1 to 3 points. And so the 3 remaining states, they're all going to be incredibly competitive. Trump doesn't need these states, but he is still spending a good amount of time in them. Want to start off in Wisconsin. It's going to be the first race to fold in favor of the former president. Trump leads by 0.2%. An overwhelming majority of the recent polls show a complete tie between the two candidates, but Trump does hold a very slight lead in the average. I mean, Wisconsin has favored Harris basically since she first entered the race in early August, but as time has gone on, as we've gone into the final stretch, her performance has just been becoming worse and worse. Trump is now the leader in the polling here, and this is a state that Trump also flipped in 2016. It was one of the 3 historic blue wall victories for Donald Trump, along with Michigan and Pennsylvania. He did lose it narrowly in 2020, though, but Joe Biden actually won Wisconsin by a smaller margin than Trump won it by in 2016, even though at this point 4 years ago, he was leading by over 5 points in the polls. We see a pretty dramatic change in the market odds here as well. It basically went from 60-40 in favor of Harris just 1 month ago, now to 60-40 in favor of Donald Trump. Trump is doing pretty close to as well as he was doing right before Joe Biden dropped out, right after that first presidential debate. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Kamala Harris's campaign has been falling apart in the Midwest. I mean, the graph in Michigan is even more disastrous. I'll show you that in just a few moments. But with Wisconsin, we're going to place it into the tilt Republican category. I have him winning it by just around 1 to 2 points. It is going to be incredibly close, but Trump does have a marginal advantage. This is a state he's won before. Next up, we're actually going to move all the way out west to Nevada. I have it going to Trump by a larger margin than Michigan, mainly as a result of the state's significant shift to the right over the last few years. Republicans actually won the governorship there in 2022. And so looking at polling in Nevada, Donald Trump leads by 0.7%. It is definitely a competitive race. There are lots of polls showing both sides of the story. Kamala Harris needs to win Nevada. If she can't win Nevada, she's not going to hold on to any of the blue wall states. Her legacy is going to come crumbling down along with her campaign. I mean, in 2016, Clinton led by 2 points. She won the race by 2. In 2020, Joe Biden led by 4.6. He won the race by 2.4. Polling in Nevada generally has been pretty accurate, although it still has generally favored Democrats a little bit more. With Trump ahead by 0.7, he's in a pretty good spot to win the state, becoming the first Republican to win the silver state in 20 years. The betting markets also show Trump in a very strong position. I mean, Nevada was a dead heat basically since mid-August all the way until mid-October, but just 7 days ago, Trump's odds started to shoot up. He is now at a 65% chance of winning. Not nearly as well as he was doing in mid-July, but still much better than his performance basically since Kamala Harris replaced Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee. Nevada is also going to be tilt Republican. I have Trump winning this race by somewhere around 1 to 2 points. And the last race we have is the Wolverine state of Michigan. This is another key state for Kamala Harris. It's the most liberal of all the battlegrounds, so if Harris can't even win Michigan, she has no chance of winning the election. Trump leads by 0.2% in the polls here. We do have a recent Quinnipiac poll showing Harris up by 4, but this is the most liberal pollster in the country, along with Bloomberg. They have Harris up by 3. I mean, when Harris was peaking, Harris led by 4, 5, sometimes even 6 points in these Bloomberg and Quinnipiac polls. So we are still seeing, even from the liberal pollsters, a huge dip in support for the vice president. I mean, Harris took the lead right after she entered the race. It was pretty quick, but as the election nears, her position is only getting worse. If you look at the betting markets, Trump has a 53% chance of winning this race. We've seen a huge reversal from where we were just 1 month ago. On September 27th, Kamala Harris had a 68% chance of winning Michigan, but that was basically where she peaked. Her campaign has been falling off of a cliff since then. Her odds went as low as 41 just 4 days ago, although over the last few days, Trump's numbers have dipped very slightly. But it really doesn't matter who wins Michigan. Kamala Harris needs the state, but if she's already lost Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, it's not going to matter. And there's no realistic scenario where Trump actually needs to win Michigan to win the election, because basically all the other swing states are going to go to him first. And so as one of the most independent creators on this platform, I can tell you that Trump is in an incredibly good position. I'm not saying this because I specifically want him to win, but that simply is what is happening. 2024 is no comparison to 2020. Donald Trump is doing so much better than he was last time. He's on track to win at least 312 electoral votes. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe right now for more content like this leading up to the election in November, and join my Discord server to participate in our 2024 prediction map contest at discord.gg/elections.